Convenience Store News' Small Operator Academy, an education program designed to help the industry's independents and small chains overcome their biggest challenges and stay competitive. We're pleased to have here with us today John Matthews to talk about the importance of local store marketing. John is the founder and president of Gray Cat Enterprises, a management consulting company based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Gray Cat specializes in strategic project management and consulting for multi-unit operations, as well as interim executive management and strategic planning. John has more than 30 years of senior level executive experience in the retail industry with dynamic multi-unit companies such as White Hen Pantry, Little Caesars Pizza, and the Jimmy John's sandwich chain. John, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here today. I'm going to hand it over to you now.
My pleasure, Linda. Thank you. It's always great to be a part of this program. I appreciate doing the Ops Excellence and the food service one previous. So today we're going to actually talk about local store marketing for retailers, which is one that is near and dear to my heart. This is one where I kind of cut my teeth at both Little Caesars, at Clark, and at Jimmy John's, and kind of have built a local store marketing program for a number of companies that I've done work with. So for those of you that aren't that familiar with my background, I used to be the president at Jimmy John's and used to be the national marketing director at Little Caesars. And the important thing about that is the quick service restaurants do a phenomenal job with local store marketing. And I tried to apply a lot of those learnings over to Clark and White Hen when I was the head of 5 divisions for that convenience store chain. And so you're going to be able to kind of get the best of both worlds. You're going to hear a little bit about what we did for convenience stores to drive local store marketing, and also the best practices for local store marketing by the quick service restaurants. A little bit of background about Gray Cat. I've been doing this for 22 years. I actually specialize in 3 different areas: senior project management, interim executive leadership, and strategic planning. And as Linda mentioned, I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina. So probably the first question that you might be thinking about is, John, I have customers. I average, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 customers per store per day. Why do I even need marketing? Well, there's only 2 ways that you can actually increase your sales. You can either sell more to your existing customers. So you take those 1,200 customers, probably half of which are coming into your store, the other half are using pay at the pump, and you try to sell more to them. So imagine if you could sell, a nickel more, or a quarter more, or a dollar more to every one of those customers, what that would do for your overall sales. The other way to increase your sales is to attract new customers. So to get people to actually come into your location that currently do not patronize your location. Ideally, you're doing both. You're attracting new customers, you're selling to them. While they're there, you're upselling them. While your existing customers there, you're upselling them as well. And it all really starts with engaging your operational staff. So you got to make sure that they're not only helping you sell more in the stores, but they're also helping you to sell outside of the stores. I'm going to talk a little bit about vertical integration of your brand and the importance of being able to communicate the same message in store, in the marketplace, through local store marketing, via your social media, and through a real low cost way through public relations. So we'll go through this in a little bit more detail. From an in-store marketing standpoint, it's, to me, to have someone actually cross the threshold of your door and walk into the store should be almost treated as a privilege, not a right. Not every customer is going to come into your location. And if you're lucky enough to have customers that are patronizing your store, you should treat them as a privilege. And the more that you get to know that customer and the more you can greet them by name and know what they're buying, the better that is. Don't be afraid to engage the transaction. I know at Jimmy John's, you may have ever, if you've ever been in a Jimmy John's, as soon as you cross that that threshold and walk into the store, we're engaging the customer either with a funny comment or what would you like to order. Part of that is that we just want our customers to really enjoy the whole atmosphere that they're walking into. But the other part of that is to actually start the operational process of actually making their sandwiches and getting them in and getting them out. So it does improve throughput by engaging the transaction. You also want to think about what are some of the merchandising techniques that you're using as selling tools to help communicate a special to the customer. Are your signs easily visible for that particular customer? In-store suggestive sales. I never can understand why a cashier or an in-store associate isn't trying to upsell every customer that walks in. And it can be more passive. You could just simply have your products displayed appropriately. So you've got muffins next to coffee. So you got those ancillary products. And they become more impulse items because someone's getting a cup of coffee and they go, heck, I could use a muffin. I didn't come in here for a muffin, but that's a good idea. I think I'll do that. Or trying to develop some sort of combo sales. If you're selling sandwiches, how do you have a combo sale that includes chips or a drink or a product line extension of certain items that you might have in your locations? I'm going to talk a little bit later about developing catering programs. This is a completely untapped area for convenience stores, of which quick service restaurants dominate that area in their 2 to 3 mile radius. And then developing some sort of employee incentives, trying to get your employees to say, you know what, let's see if we can sell 10 more cookies with sandwiches today. Let's see if we can sell 3 packs of cigarettes as opposed to single packs. How are you incenting your employees to be able to do that? So first of all, you want to make sure that your employees know what the heck is on sale for that particular week or that day or that month. And so you need to build teamwork around, how do I communicate all the marketing activities that we have for the month of July? You want to reward and recognize your employees that are actually trying to upsell customers. At Jimmy John's, we used to have a contest every day. Who could sell the most pickles with a sandwich? Who could sell the most cookies with a sandwich? And at the end of the week or the end of the month, those employees would get maybe a $25 Apple Card or something along those lines. But over the course of the month, you might have sold 1,000 more pickles than you would have if you didn't spend the $25 to do that. So think about how do you reward and recognize your employees to push products out the door for you. And then educating your employees on the marketing programs. There's nothing worse than when a customer comes in and they see a sign and they ask you a question about the sign and you're totally oblivious to what that sign says, let alone being able to explain what that marketing program is. So doing monthly prep lists to make sure that what's on sale is being promoted through your POP, that your employees are trained on what's on sale. You don't have signage that's been up there for 3 or 4 months and it's no longer applicable because those products are no longer on sale. So a complete changeover each and every week or each and every month, however often you change your promotions, most likely monthly. So you want to make sure that in store, your POP is correct, your employees are trained. Out of the store, you may identify, here's one local store marketing idea that we want to do this month, or maybe you're only going to do one a quarter, and that's okay. But as long as you have that laid out in a systematic plan, and then you may say, from a customer service, our contest this month is that whoever sells the most cookies with every sandwich that goes out the door wins that $25 Apple Card. So that's some very simple, very cost-friendly programs that you can do in your store. Now let's talk about leaving the store. And this is the huge differentiator between what the quick service restaurants are and what convenience stores are. Quick service restaurants, they view the 2 to 3 mile radius around each of their restaurants as prime customer real estate. They don't wait for the customer to come to the location. They go to the customer to promote their products. I can't tell you, when I was at Little Caesars, I was a community marketing rep. I had 32 City of Chicago locations, and I knew every inch of their territories. I visited every school. I visited every business. I did everything I could possibly do to promote Little Caesars in their 2 to 3 mile radius, and it paid off in huge dividends for each of those stores simply because I took the time to go out into the marketplace and actually tap into all those businesses that were having meetings where they were serving pizza. We were the pizza choice for that, or all the schools that would have pizza. I was being considered because I simply went to the schools and promoted the product. So it's out there for the taking. Now, you have to think about, in my case, I'm a pretty outgoing type of guy. So I'm the perfect guy to go out into the marketplace and talk to complete strangers and try to get them to understand what your business is all about. If you're not that type, you need to find someone that is that outgoing employee. And that's okay. If you're more of an introvert and this isn't your thing to get up and leave and go out and talk to strangers, find someone that is comfortable in doing that and capitalize on their strengths. So you need to have outgoing employees that are actually going to go out into the marketplace. You're going to want to have a sales-oriented internal staff that can upsell a lot of people. And then you want to be thinking about how you plan and prepare for this. So you make it routine. I'll tell you, I go back to the Jimmy John's example. Jimmy John's, we dedicated 5 hours a week to local store marketing. Nothing more, nothing less, 5 hours a week. And our local store marketing was simply going out and sampling our product at 10:30 in the morning. And at 11:30, that person had come back to the restaurant and they had sampled. I'm going to share with you the exact details around our sampling program in another slide coming up. But basically, the cost was the hourly cost of having that employee out there and the food cost for the sandwiches. But the return that we got on that local store marketing effort was tenfold from the activity. So the only way that it worked is we actually incorporated it into our labor schedule. We actually said, Bill, you're going to go out on Monday and do this for an hour, and Sally, you're going to go out on Tuesday, and so on and so forth. So we made it very easy for someone to actually execute this program for 5 hours a week at Jimmy John's. You may want to look at it and kind of go, you know what? I can't afford 5 hours a week. I don't have the personnel to do it. I'm going to do 5 hours a month. So just make sure that you're making some sort of effort, and maybe it's only an hour a week that you're going out there. Jimmy John's was 5 hours a week, so it was a little bit more intense. I do this presentation a lot to a lot of groups, and this is the one area that just shocks me. I ask everyone in the audience to raise their hand. How many of those folks, when they opened their store, did they do a grand opening? And invariably, it's 10, maybe 15% of the hands go up in the audience. And it just shocks me that someone would spend $1 million or $2 million or $4 million to build this store, and then just simply leave it up to fate to, unlock the doors and hope that customers find you. They don't have a big event that communicates to the community that this store is open. You want to be thinking about, how do you make it exciting for customers? And so if you didn't do a grand opening, you want to make sure that you're doing anniversary celebrations at least. Tell someone you've been around for a year. Tell someone that you've survived for 5 years or 10 years. Create excitement at your store. And so it could be that you're doing like a 3-day weekend event where you have a radio remote and you got vendor mascots there, and you get vendors to contribute products at a discount or for free that you can offer during your event. So you're creating news, you're creating sweepstakes, you've got marketing ideas planned, you got signage, you got everything that creates excitement that, gosh darn it, I've been out here for 5 years, I've survived, I've come back, if you were a customer early on, come back to my location. So if you missed out on doing a grand opening, or if you got a store that you're building, now's your chance to actually do a grand opening, think about it from an anniversary celebration. No one knows you've been there for 5 years or 10 years. It's up to you to pound your chest a little bit and say, you know what? I'm relevant. I am still here in the community. Come visit me. So I actually have a book that's on Amazon if you're interested. It's probably 25 or 30 pages long. It's got a step-by-step process of all the things that you would have to consider to stage a killer grand opening or an anniversary. It will apply to anniversaries as well. So it's got pre-marketing and event ideas and checklists and pre-opening teasers and marketing ideas. It's got evaluation and budgeting forms. You're not going to do this for free, so you got to have that. But if you want a guide, there's one on Amazon. You just go there and look for John Matthews Gray Cat Enterprises, and it's based on Amazon. So let's just get into a few ideas with regard to local store marketing. So we'll start right at the store, and this is a very simple one to draw attention to your location. Having a cold air balloon up on top of your roof or out in a parking lot or something that's on your property, and you can illuminate this so it's day and night. Boy, I'll tell you, when you're doing a grand opening, you have one of these. A lot of times the community doesn't even care. They don't even require you to have a permit because you're the new kid in town and they want you to be a success. If you've been around a while, you probably want to get a permit from your local municipality to make sure you can have a cold air balloon. But I'll tell you, a true story. My son and I, we used to live in Chicago, and we were driving down the road once, and he saw this big pink inflatable gorilla on top of a Jiffy Lube in our hometown or the town that we were living in. And he's going, Dad, look at that big pink gorilla. That's amazing. Look at that. And I go, holy cow, there's a Jiffy Lube there. I had no idea there was a Jiffy Lube there. I've been going to another Jiffy Lube, which is 10 minutes further away from us. So it was one of those promotional call outs that all of a sudden I realized that I was going to the wrong Jiffy Lube because this Jiffy Lube had been there for so long that the trees had grown around it. You couldn't see it from the road, and nothing called out to it until my son saw this big pink inflatable gorilla. So make sure you know your zoning restrictions, but this is something that can just scream that your store is here, it's alive, and it's in existence for your customers. Another area that I think is very important is there's a bunch of other retailers out there that don't necessarily compete with you, but they have completely different customer groups that are going to their stores that they may not be coming over to your location, and vice versa. So if we went out when I was running the stores in Chicago, we actually went out and talked to Jiffy Lube because Jiffy Lube had a whole bunch of locations and we had a whole bunch of locations. So it made total sense that every time someone came into a Clark, we gave those customers a $6 off oil coupon for Jiffy Lube that forced people back into Jiffy Lube. And then anytime anyone went to a Jiffy Lube, we had a coupon book that we had developed that had over $10 in savings for Clark. And so no other expense other than we printed these coupon books. Jiffy Lube printed their coupons. We exchanged them. They handed them out for us. We handed them out for them. We each expanded our customer base. It was basically a win-win. And our cost was the redemption of the coupons plus the cost to print the flyers. So it's something that's very simple. You don't have to have 100 locations. It can be just your location and maybe a guy that's a half mile away. And you find, in our case, they were both automotive related. It was Jiffy Lube and Clark gas stations. So it made good sense for us to tap into that. Vendor tie-ins, again, much larger organizations. If you have multiple locations, you could probably tie into some bigger things like we did in the Chicago White Sox, but there's no reason why you can't just tie into maybe a vendor is sponsoring the local high school team and you're going to piggyback on that vendor's relationship because you offer something that the vendor doesn't. The vendor has product, you have a location. So you could have a sweepstakes for something, maybe it's a raffle item from that high school. It could be a minor league baseball team. It's a way for you to create a kind of a win-win-win scenario where you have the vendor, you have the the company or the sports team that the vendor is sponsoring, and you have your store. And so you're offering, I've got 1,200 customers per store coming in to my location. The vendor's offering, we've got product, and the minor league baseball team or basketball team is offering their customer base and their arenas. So you create a kind of a three-way partnership with piggybacking through your relationships with your vendors. I talked earlier about how catering and group sales could be huge for convenience stores. And for the life of me, I don't understand why they don't go after it more. If you think about all of the business meetings that are taking place within a 2 to 3 mile radius of your location, every one of those business meetings probably has something that they're offering the participants in that meeting. Either it's coffee, either it's waters, 20 ounces. Maybe if it's a longer meeting, it's sandwiches. If it's a morning meeting, it's muffins or donuts or bagels. It could be that you're getting chips. It could be a variety of different things. Panera does an unbelievable job here of actually packaging all those items up, and they go to local businesses and they leave flyers. So when meetings are set, people pull out all these menus, these catering menus, and they go ahead and order the Panera catering package. Convenience stores don't put together that package as nicely as Panera, even though you sell coffee and bottled water and donuts and muffins and sandwiches and chips and all the same items that Panera has. It's just a matter of putting together a package that then you can go out and hand these flyers out or these menus out to all the businesses in your area, all the schools in your area, associations in your area, athletic clubs. All of these folks are eating during meetings, and you need to fight for your share of stomach. And if you don't leave your store, you're probably not in that consideration set. Like I mentioned at Little Caesars, I visited over 600 schools for the 32 units that I was responsible for. So that's like 20 per store that I visited, and we dwarfed all the other local pizzerias as far as selling pizza into those schools, simply because I was the only one that took the initiative to go to the school with an opportunity for them to order. And I still remember it was 1-800-7-Caesar. And I had a list of all the amounts of pizzas and how much it would be and how many kids you had. This is how many pizzas you needed. I made it very simple for someone to say yes. They didn't have to go and research and say, oh, I need food. I was Johnny on the spot, and I got my business that way. So a huge opportunity for convenience stores. Just look what Panera is doing, mimic it, and get out and visit all these locations. I mentioned earlier about Jimmy John's and how we used to dedicate 5 hours a week to local store marketing, and it was solely on product sampling. So what we would do is we would look at about a 7-minute radius around each of our locations. And we would have a huge map on the back of the wall of the store. And every day we would make 24 samples. So we would make 8 sandwiches, cut them into threes. And so we would have a total of 24 samples that we would wrap a menu around. And methodically, we would just kind of go around the trade area. It would take us about 6 weeks to cover the entire 7-minute trade area around each of our locations. We'd go out at 10:30, hand out a free sample. The employees at the Staples would try that sample and they go, wow, this is great. They would then at 11:30 say, I need more. So they would order a couple of sandwiches. We would deliver to the Staples. We would drop off other menus and our catering menus and drop off business cards and everything like that. And our sales, every time we did that and handed out 24 samples, we would get 6, 8, 10 orders that day. It was that reactive. And so it was well worth it to get all these people to taste the product for free, because food is something that's very personal to people. They would taste that bread. We'd have 24 people out there tasting our product, and a third of them would order that day for sandwiches. So product sampling, especially if you have a good food service operation, Don't leave it up to a Facebook ad. Don't leave it up to a tweet. Get your product into the mouths of potential customers. And if you've got a big, strip center across the street, make some samples, go across the street, have them try your product, have them go, wow, had no idea that you could get food this good at a gas station. And that's how you're going to win people over through product sampling. Seasonal sales, I go back to my Little Caesars day. We had a reason to come buy pizza, probably 100 different reasons throughout the year. And we would do it for, the day before Thanksgiving. You're going to be eating turkey all weekend. Why not have a pizza on Wednesday? We would do Valentine's, taking a pizza to your sweetheart. We would do Super Bowl Sunday, which turned out to be something that was absolutely huge. There's a lot of people in January that start thinking about Super Bowl parties, and sometimes they're just not thinking about Little Caesars. And so how do we make sure that they all know what we offer? So we would put Super Bowl packages together, and every pizza that went out the door during the month of January got a flyer that prompted people to start thinking about Super Bowl, and they had coupon offers for that. So it's up to you to kind of connect the dots for your customers. And if you don't have to do every event. We probably went overboard at Little Caesars, the amount of events that we tried to tap into. But if you picked one a quarter and you said, you know what, I'm going to own graduations around my store because I got all these schools that are real close. I'm going to own that. I'm going to put together a graduation package that makes sense, and I'm going to promote it with everyone that comes into my stores during the month of, March and April. So when May and June comes around, I'm in the considered sect for graduations. Coupon books. This is something that was an awesome program that I did at Little Caesars. I carried it over to Clark and we did it there. It basically came from teams would come to us and say, hey, Mr. Matthews, would you sponsor my team for $300? It's a T-ball team. And, I could have simply just cut a bunch of checks and probably saw no value for that. Instead, I turned it around on the teams and I said, look, I'm going to sponsor your team, but this is what I need from you. And we'll start with my example at Little Caesars. I would tell them, I'm going to give you 300 Little Caesars coupon books. I want you to go out, you sell them. You sell them for $1, sell them for $2, sell them for $5. I don't care. You keep 100% of the proceeds in selling these coupon books. I also want my logo on your jersey. I'm going to give every kid a squeezer bottle with Little Caesars on it. So if you've got 15 kids on the team, you get 15 of these squeezer bottles. And at the end of the year, I'm going to give you a pizza party for 10. Or 10 pizzas. So you can feed your team and the parents. So rather than have me write a $300 check to the team and not get much for it, I now have turned it around where I've got little 12-year-olds out there selling my coupon books in the marketplace, and they're not even on my payroll. And they're out there promoting my product. I've got all these kids running around ball fields with Little Caesars squeezers. I get all the parents and the kids that come into the restaurant after the season and enjoy our pizza. I get my logo on their jersey, and all of that cost me $32. So instead of paying $300, now I'm paying $32. And so I'm getting 10 teams for the price of one, and I've got an entire 12-year-old labor staff out there selling my products and promoting my products. So it was our way of kind of diverting cash out the door and actually having people work. Now, again, Clark was a big company in Chicago. So when we employed this at Clark, not only did we get teams to do it, leagues started to contact us saying, hey, we would love to sell 5,000 of these coupon books. And at one point, we actually distributed 750,000 coupon books out in the marketplace. And teams would come back to us after they sold through their 300 and say, hey, we want to buy bats. Can we have 500 more? Absolutely, you can. So in a sense, we created kind of our own currency. It actually helped the community, helped us with our sponsorship and reducing our costs, got our name out there, baked in a lot of brand awareness and community love for Clark and for Little Caesars through the teams and through the parents. So it's a terrific way to do it. I would highly recommend that you take a look at that because the kids are out there selling something to help raise dollars for your team. Why not have them sell something that can benefit you as well? I'm a big believer in sports sponsorships simply because it's a great way to tie in a community sport and audience with that, with your vendors and with the retail. And again, it's kind of a three-way event. I always focus more on the minor league teams because they're a lot more open to working with teams or working with retailers as opposed to the professional major league teams. And so we sponsored the local minor league team called the Chicago Wolves, where we actually had a promotion that when you came in and you purchased a coffee for 99 cents, you got a 2-for-1 ticket to go to the Chicago Wolves. So we helped them put seats in their arena. The coffee company helped offset our cost to advertise with the Chicago Wolves because they cut us a check to be a part of this promotion. And then they saw incremental coffee sales because instead of selling their coffee for $1.59, they were selling it for 99 cents. So it was a good win-win-win scenario where we had signage and we had giveaways and we had advertising at the arena because we would go out and buy advertising through the Chicago Wolves as part of this partnership and then recoup some of our monies through our vendors. So sponsoring local sports teams is a nice way of doing that. Not to think about that everything has to be out, peddling, door to door and everything like that. You can actually do it through social media as well. I've highlighted two here that I think are great. Probably a third would be X or Twitter. But essentially, you can get to a lot of people in a hurry. The problem is everyone can get to a lot of people in a hurry. And so there's a lot of noise out there. But you have to have the ability to reach these people. And if you don't have followers on Facebook or you don't have connections on LinkedIn, you're really not going to get a lot of inertia. So there's a lot of work that has to be done to develop those databases. This is how GrayCat builds all of their businesses through LinkedIn. But I also have 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. So when I communicate something on LinkedIn, I'm getting thousands of people that are viewing it and liking it or whatever. Why? Because I've spent a huge amount of time building up that database. So it's important that you build up that database. But you can create, a social media strategy on LinkedIn. This is if you're going after group sales and everything like that. You could join key LinkedIn groups. You can do it around your network. There's a lot of Raleigh groups that I am part of that would be perfect for me if I were a convenience store chain trying to promote group business. I could actually see who the administrative assistants are. I could see all these people. I could actually direct message them through these LinkedIn groups. You got to create some content. So you're either doing blogs or you're writing articles or you're posting your menu for your catering and everything like that. So you can use LinkedIn to find out who are all the businesses around my store, who are the people that work at those businesses that I can reach out directly. So now I'm saving a lot of time. And it may be that I still want to go there in person, but now when I walk in and I see the person at the counter or the administrative person, maybe I already know their name is Sally because I recognize their picture and I see that Sally is sitting behind the counter. So you can develop a company page as well. So you can either have your own individual page or you can have a company page or you can have both. At GrayCat, I have both. And again, I post various articles in both places to kind of just gain some traction. Facebook, it's absolutely huge, 3.1 billion users. Most companies, they create a Facebook page. They put a whole bunch of stuff out there. They get a bunch of likes. You may want to think about, there are some local community pages that are out there that you may want to monitor and actually post directly into those community pages because those are the ones that are right in your backyard. For instance, there's one in Wake Forest, North Carolina, which is a suburb of Raleigh. It's got almost 100,000 people that are members in it. They're all asking for, hey, what's the lowest gas price? What's a place for tires? Anyone know a good Italian restaurant that I can go to? Same with on X. There's a bunch of groups that you can be a part of on X, and you can actually you could go through and monitor it. Maybe you spend 10 minutes a day doing this, but you monitor it and then you interject. Oh, you should consider ABC store. They've got the best, beer prices in the area. So gives you an opportunity to kind of reach out to folks via social media in that fashion. The last area I want to talk about is public relations. And the reason why I like public relations is this is incredibly low cost. It just takes a little bit of time to kind of go out and implement these programs. And it's not necessarily perceived as hard sell or advertising. So there's a guy that I read his book. It's called The Tipping Point. I was a huge believer before I read the book in this kind of thought process. I'm a huge believer after I read his book. But there are connectors in the community, and if you can reach those connectors and those influencers, I don't really like that term because I think it's been used a little bit too much, but there are people that have a lot of connections. So if you have a chamber of commerce and the people that are on the chamber, those people are really connected in the community. The fire, the police, the youth organizers, business leaders, other big networkers, they're all very connected. So if you make a relationship with one of those chamber members, and you have a good impression with that person, you basically can have access to their network because they're going to be one who's going to be recommending certain services or certain products to their constituents. So finding those quality, influential decision makers is critical. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and meet them all at once. I would say, if you could find an opportunity to meet one a week, that's 52 influencers that you're going to know over the course of the year. And I think that's a pretty great, group or database because these people are connected throughout the industry. And so I'll give you an example. I moved to Raleigh 16 years ago. I didn't know a soul here, but I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to go out and meet 3 new people a week. And I'm going to do that for the first 52 weeks I'm here. And lo and behold, I'd keep track of it too. I'd find these people either on Meetup or on LinkedIn or on Facebook or whatever. I'd go have coffee with them. And then they would go into my database and they'd go into my connections. And lo and behold, 16 years later, I'm still friends with some of those people that I met. But I did go out and meet 150 people the first year that I was here, because I was not going to just come down here and sit in my apartment at the time. I wanted to go meet, and now people kind of laugh at me. They said, John knows everyone in Raleigh. And it's because of that initial meeting. Those people let me meet other people. And so now I stay in touch with them. Either I'm calling them, mostly texting them, emailing them. But I know that if you can reach some key connectors and you can convince them that you're the product for them or the service for them, they are going to go out of their way to promote you throughout their networks. Another area that you want to be thinking about is creating news about your store. So whether you have new items, new employees, a promotion, get to know your local newspaper editor, promote your news on social media, promote it on X, promote it on Facebook, promote it on LinkedIn. No one, I hate to say this, but no one cares about your store unless you make them care about your store. And so it's up to you to be kind of the guy standing on the top of the hill, beating your chest, saying, hey, I just promoted Sally to general manager. Sally's going to love that. Her family's going to love that. Her friends are going to love that. And you're going to get some publicity by sending it out. So if there's local news editors, you should probably feed them this information regularly. create news for your own store. No one is going to promote your store better than you. So you need to do that. And then lastly, you want to get active in your community. So think about, the Book It program that Pizza Hut used to have, or every book that you read when you were in elementary. If you read 5 of them, you got a small personal pizza at Pizza. It pains me to say that since I worked at Little Caesars, but they had a great program there. Fundraising events, getting the schools, the cheerleading group to come to your parking lot and do a car wash, or getting a football team to come and have a contest where they're eating some of your food, hosting Chamber of Commerce events, doing store tours. This is something we did at Little Caesars all the time. We would go to schools and offer a store tour where the kids could come in and actually see how pizza was made. And some of them actually had a chance to make the pizza. Well, who are they dragging in there? They're dragging their parents in there. So now the parents know all about the store. And then you can do sponsorships with the local high schools, the middle schools, the elementary schools, or any type of charity tie-in. Maybe you work with your vendor that every time you sell a Snickers bar, 10 cents goes to the local school charity, and you work with that vendor doing that. A lot of things that you can do to get active in the community. I'm not saying you're doing something every weekend, but if you did something once a month, once a quarter, you're going to start to develop outside of your store, develop alliances with customers that may or may not be aware of your particular location. So I rattled through a number of ideas, much like the how to stage a grand opening that's on Amazon. I have a second book called Local Store Marketing for Retailers that's also on Amazon. Inside this book, there's 22 ideas. And the way I wrote this is for you guys. I wrote it for the operator. This isn't a marketing book. This is, I want to do an idea. I only want to read 3 pages. Tell me how to do this idea, John. And that's the way it's written. So you got 1 page is dedicated to the overview. 1 page is dedicated to your planning, and then 1 page is dedicated to the execution timeline. So the whole book is 80 pages. You don't have to read 80 pages. Just pick an idea. You can read 3 pages, and you'll get something out of it. It costs you $29.95. I guarantee you're going to make more money by executing one of these ideas every quarter. You will pay for this book in the first quarter. It will be done. So just go to Amazon. It will help you. It'll be like me sitting there telling you what to do for your local store marketing. So local store marketing, it can provide a huge sales foundation for you. In particular, if you leave your store and go and dominate your 2 to 3 mile radius, it's going to give you a competitive advantage. I guarantee you, if you go out and do this, not every convenience store is doing it. Heck, not every quick service restaurant is even doing it. So you can be the one who gets the business because you took the time to go out there. A lot of the ideas that I went through are low cost or no cost. It's just sweat equity. It is maybe an hour here of your time. Develop a long-term strategy. Lay out a year saying, you know what, great ideas, John. I can't do all that, but I'm going to do 1 a quarter. And so lay out what you're going to do each quarter. And then once you start seeing the results, you might go, yeah, maybe I can do 6 times a year. Maybe I can do 8 times a year. You got to have an operational commitment to it. You got to put it on the schedule, or else something will come up and you won't be able to do it. So just treat it like operations. Again, start maybe 1 hour a week doing it. If you can do more, better, but 1 hour a week at least get you started. And that's not a huge commitment. And I remember sitting in a meeting once, and a guy was presenting from McDonald's, and he said 80% of all of our customers come within 2 miles of each of our stores. That's it, 2 miles. So I say 3 miles down at the bottom because I want you to be an overachiever. But if you want to narrow it down to 2 miles, the likelihood that you're going to capture 80% of your customers in there is pretty high, because I trust McDonald's does their history and their analysis on where their customers are coming from. So just know, customers are across the street. You got a food service operation. Don't run a Facebook ad. Take samples across there and have them taste it so they actually believe that your food is actually very good across the street. So once again, my name is John Matthews. I am the president and CEO at Gray Cat Enterprises. if you want to get a hold of me, there's my email address and I'm going to give you my mobile number. If you want to ask me any questions, more than happy to answer any questions. Or you can go to my website at graycatenterprises.com. Again, a couple books that you probably want to consider on Amazon. Check those out. And I'm going to turn it back over to Linda.
Thanks, John, for that idea-packed presentation. And thank you for providing our Small Operator Academy members with such valuable advice on how they can use local store marketing to build a strong and sustainable customer base for their stores. As always, you've left us with a ton of great ideas.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.